Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Sharon. I could hear Jack was saying something. I don't know where is Jack, but Jack was saying something. So thank you for doing that, Sharon. That's very kind.
It
There
was
he
helpful. Just
is.
helping me
So
through the
good.
steps.
Did you guys watch the movie yesterday?
Yes, it was wonderful. Great movie.
It's
Great.
very good,
Mm.
isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah,
Yeah.
terrific.
It's
it
a
was a
very
fan
special.
it was a fantastic night. Others that didn't see it, please come to the next one. It was a
Yes.
most successful evening.
Very good, Dan. I'm very happy. I'm very happy because it's good. It's good that we can kind of like, come together and also just have popcorn and some things like these, but especially watching such a special movie because the movie, it's a Scorsese movie, and I know some people that actually worked on that movie that they said that they all of the crew and everybody they wanted to do something and they came with an intention that was sort of kind of like, oh yes, we're gonna do some sort of like historical or documentary type, and they got so touched, because they learned about His Holiness and about the process of like, how His Holiness became His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. So it's very special. It's a very special movie. It's very interesting. It opens our minds for questioning as well. So it's very nice. So very good, very good. Hope you guys can do it more often, especially in November when I'm there. We can have it every day movie. We can do that. We just watch a movie and we don't do anything. So that I think is a good idea. That's what we can do. So it's very good. I'm so happy we're here together. It's so nice that we can still be online and doing these talks together. So I hope you guys had a good week. People this week we had a kind of a few classes and we kind of like did quite a few things this week. So it was a good week, I think, for our blah 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 talks. But today you guys came, so many people in the Gompa. That's also very nice to hear because today the camera is from behind, so I can see more of you. I can see all of you. So don't pick your nose, okay? Because I can see you picking your nose. So that is very good that we are here together. So then once we came, you guys decided to come here. You guys made that effort to come. So it's very important that we then create the basis for this time that we're going to be here together, that really it's useful, it's beneficial, as we say in Buddhism. But in Buddhism, something to be beneficial is very important that we understand. Because of course, benefit nowadays, there's it's such a we use, like to have profit, to have benefit or something like this. But in Buddhism, I think is a little bit different, the type of profit or benefit that we want to get out of things. Why? Because first, it's not an external type of profit, right? So it's not that we're gonna get out of it and actually get more money or something like that. It's not gonna be like this. But actually, the type of benefit and profit that we want to get from Buddhism, it's a twofold, we say. So there's two aspects of it. And then the two aspects mainly is it has to, or it is aimed to decrease our dissatisfaction, decrease our sense of not enough. Not enough outside, not enough inside, not enough others, not enough me. That feeling that we sometimes have? That feeling that sometimes there's like something missing, that there's something that is like, oh no, but maybe, no. That idea that is always something else, that we're always looking for something, that we're always chasing something. And if we think about it, if we actually look into our lives, no, we are constantly, all the time, I can say, looking for something to satisfy us. Might be delicious food, like pad thai, green curry, burritos, all of these crazy things, delicious things we have. Or might be beautiful things to watch, on the phone or outside, or, nice music, or we want nice smells, or we want nice things to touch, like to feel. And if we really stop for a moment and we try to investigate our minds, this is actually the main topic. This is what is going on in our minds, all the time. And nowadays we have algorithms, like algorithms, this thing that is kind of like now in every internet and like social media and all of that, they are kind of like, and they are investigating what we do. So if we actually, it was funny because that happened the other day with a friend of mine. Someone was trying to show me something on Instagram, and they went to their Instagram, and then there's a place like where you can search things, right, on Instagram, and and it goes into like they call, I don't know these things, I might be talking completely wrong thing, but something like the feed of, like, I don't know what that means, but it's like it shows everything that you've been looking, right? So it's like the algorithm is just kind of like always showing something that you have already kind of like looked for or something, and it's just giving you more and more and more of it, right? Does it make sense what I'm saying? Yes. So that kind of like is a little bit like our own minds in a way, and not only this, it was very good because the person had, it was kind of like my godmother, so there was like only like dogs, and she's doing like a refurbishment of her house, so it's just about that, so it's just everything that is in her mind, it was being showed right there, right? So that is extremely interesting, because if we had that kind of like same type of knowledge of our own minds, we would also need to investigate and say, okay, what are the topics that we have that are constantly, in our minds? What is it? What is it that is always that we are constantly looking for, right? And on a basis, what the Buddhist point of view or the Buddhist approach, is going to say is that we are constantly looking for some sort of satisfaction, some sort of way or thing or experience that will satisfy those kind of like sensory experiences, right? Do you understand what I'm saying? Are we communicating so far? Yes. Do we have new people over there? Yes.
Yes.
One hand. Okay, welcome. Okay, very good. Welcome. So don't worry about everything I say. Please actually ignore everything I say. Just check, make sure that if you check if there is making any sense. So that is most important. So that is exactly what is the problem for ourselves, right? So that's why I always say to new people and old people no. Yes, well, you are all old. Bob is old people, so I can say old people. So, okay? So, old people, you just check and investigate, right? Because that is exactly the real problem. That's what we're going to talk a little bit about today, about how we are not actually checking our minds, and therefore we don't investigate what is kind of like in the algorithm of our minds, what we are constantly repeating and engaging ourselves again and again and again, and therefore not understanding why maybe we are not finding what we actually want. And in Buddhism, what we say, it is the basic kind of like wish that we all share, all of us, we share, is our true wish of wanting to be happy and wanting to be free from any dissatisfaction, from any unfulfilled desire, right? Is that's what we want. So right now, then why are we not able to do it? Because our minds are really just habituated ourselves, we have just habituating ourselves to look for these external things as the source of happiness, as the basis for our accomplishment of our of us feeling or fulfilling this innermost desire of wanting to be happy and not suffer. And the problem is that because we don't doubt, because we don't investigate, because we just completely blind faithfully believe, we have a blind faith in those things, that they will bring us to what we want, that accomplishment of no more kind of like need for anything else, that kind of like satisfaction, that fulfillment, that's what we are trying to achieve if we think about it. And then because we don't actually check, we don't investigate if those things, those objects, those experiences, that those people, if they can do that, right? Because we don't do it, because we don't investigate, we just ended up just doing it again and again, and suffering and being kind of like dissatisfied, and sometimes going into mental states that are very dark and very negative and very low, and even doing things that are not the best for ourselves, isn't it? Right? You guys agree with what I'm saying so far? Yes? Does it make sense? Okay.
Yes.
So that is very important, that we start really to observe that if we are okay with everything as it is, if we are just like, going and saying, oh yeah, everything's okay, my life is okay, I don't have any problems, or if everything's okay, then it's okay. Then you don't need to be here, Then I think it's very good that you came, but maybe we're not gonna actually you won't be able to get something out of it, because what is very important, and that is something that is so hard sometimes for us to understand, is that if we don't start doubting those mental states, doubting the way we are actually trying to accomplish our innermost wish to be happy and not suffer, if we don't have that doubt, there's no need for us to look for some solution for it. So in Buddhism, doubt is a very important thing. Very important thing, because it's the beginning of actually starting a spiritual path. Because if there is no need to look for an inner, because spiritual in Buddhism means inner, what does it mean to be a spiritual person for Buddhism? It's a person that actually starts to look for the answers, to be happy and to not not to be unsatisfied, and being kind of like with that feeling of something is missing. To stop that, we need to find, or try to find, that answer for it internally. So for that to happen, we need to start doubting. You need to start doubting, if the way we are accomplishing and the way we are looking for it is actually helping us, right? So that is very important. So that is why I always start to say to you guys, don't believe everything that I say, but start investigating and doubt. So, okay, so here I need the first kind of like point of attention is, when I talk about doubt, I'm not saying that we should doubt everything, that we don't kind of like get out of bed in the morning. We know it's like, oh, I don't know what's going on, if it's good or bad, I don't know my life, I don't know anything. Kalden told me to doubt, now I don't know who I am, I don't know what to do in my life. Not like that, right? So it just kind of like, actually, you start to investigate your own mind. And you start to investigate the way you approach things, right? And you just start kind of like, as we say in Buddhism, we say that we can develop three types of doubt. We say, Buddhism, they like kind of like very schematic, like things in a way, there's 1, 3 types, 5 types, 7 types, like this. So they say there's like 3 types of doubt. One, the first type of doubt is doubt tending towards a wrong, or kind of like not correct, let's say, idea, right? So for example, we say, maybe buying more things won't bring me happiness, because we start to see that maybe, just buying things and doing this and going outside for finding happiness, because we are very stressed, or we are very like this, and we want to do something, so we go and start buying, like Amazon Prime, we do like this, and we think, oh yes, maybe, like, we think, oh, this is going to bring me happiness, and then we start to buy so much, then we kind of like start doubting, like, maybe this won't bring me happiness, right? But maybe will do. And then you kind of like go into that doubt, and then you say, oh yes, it does, look at me, ha ha ha, now I have the new iPhone and I'm very happy, right? Boom. So then I buy more. So that is a beginning of a doubt. You're starting to ask yourself that maybe yes, maybe no, but you continue saying, no, 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 yes, buying really helps me to be happy. Boom. And then you continue. So that is the first type of doubt, as we say, doubt tending towards kind of like a not correct view, or not correct way of thinking. And then we have doubt as just simple doubt, which is, maybe buying too many things won't bring me happiness. Maybe it will. I don't know, right? And that is already a kind of like good type of doubt to have. just asking ourselves, just really checking in our lives. And that is why it's important to see our own ideas and our own lives, because maybe for some people it's not about buying something. Maybe for some people it's about the way I behave with people, the way I behave with that person, the way I actually think about this, the way I think about that. And you start asking yourself, right? So it's investigating right now the way you are actually chasing, that's a good word, chasing to accomplish that wish to be happy, and that wish to not kind of like have that unfulfilled mental state, and finding the way right now you are believing you can accomplish that. Oh, maybe I need to be an important monk and I need to do this and blah, 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 kind of like crazy minds like that. So it's like this, that you need to start doubting and investigating. Okay, does it make sense? Do you guys, does it, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So then through that kind of like first level of doubt, which is like maybe yes, maybe no, oh yes, I'm going to continue, it comes the second one, because we start to continue doubting and investigating and checking and say, maybe actually, I just bought my iPhone and I'm not happy. I'm actually really, it kind of like stay with me 3 minutes. And now I have to pay for it for like 2 years almost. So it's like, does it actually make sense to me for doing that? So then you start to actually have that doubt that like, maybe yes, maybe no, but you kind of like are still in doubt, right? So that is the second type of doubt. And then we go through the third type of doubt, as we call the doubt, a correct kind of like doubt tending towards a correct understanding, right? Which is an idea, an example would be something like, maybe buying more things might not bring me happiness. Maybe actually they will. And then, well, I investigated, I tried, and actually they don't. They don't, right? So that is the start of really us being able to transform and change our minds. Because the moment we start doubting and the moment we start checking and analyzing and we come to the conclusion ourselves, our own conclusion, okay? Not because the crazy monk said, oh, this is that. No, because you came to the conclusion that, yes, okay, I have to be honest here with myself, and this is not helping me, right? This is not helping me to accomplish. So when I come to that conclusion, then the process starts. Then the path, the spiritual path actually starts. Many times what happens is that people think that because they had that insight, right, about themselves, about kind of like, oh, I can see that what I've been doing doesn't help me, and kind of like I can see that this is not good, and and they think that just because they understood it, just because they had that insight, it's gone. And then what happens many times is that it doesn't go away so easy. So then what happens, it comes back and they start what? Guilt tripping themselves. Oh, I'm a bad person. Oh no, I'm still dead. Oh no, I'm still stuck in this. Oh no, I'm dead. And then we create more suffering for ourselves. So sometimes that's why I kind of like I get a bit worried sometimes when I see some things on the internet nowadays about spiritual path or awakening. Oh, you have to have the awakening and all of that. And I said, well, you're just actually understanding a little bit more your mind. And then what are you going to do with that, right? What do you do with that understanding about how your mind works, right? Well, the Buddhist path is going to say, now that you know that these habit, that this way of thinking, that this way of acting, that this way of speaking, that this way of of behaving doesn't help you to accomplish your wish to be happy and not suffer, now you can start training your mind. Now the spiritual path starts. Now you start to walk on the spiritual path, and guess what, it's a long walk. And it's a walk that is actually gonna have some turns and some ups and downs and all of that. But the most important aspect of it is really through your own experience of realizing, because you doubt the way things were and you had that experience, then you keep going. It doesn't matter what happens, you just keep going, right? So you just go more and more, kind of like creating then the conditions to say, okay, if following, just buying things doesn't help me, then what helps me, right? Then actually what it is there, what I can do to actually accomplish what I want, which is to be happy and to not suffer. So actually, it's like doubt is the spark, or the kind of like the beginning, the that will propel us, that will like make us start our spiritual path. And then with what happens is a word that we say a lot, and sometimes people don't understand, because in Buddhism we sometimes use, but we don't use so much, which is about the development of our faith, and faith especially in ourselves, right? Faith is something that in Buddhism it doesn't exist in the way that normally kind of like happens maybe in other philosophies or other religions, because it doesn't work if it is a faith that is not based on your own experiences. So faith in Buddhism, it's a faith that is actually kind of like, as I like to say, logical or reasoning based. It's based on your own reasoning, on your own logic, and especially your own experience. Because I can be here saying about all of these nice things, all of these great, oh yes, this is very nice, oh you can do this, you can do that. But if you don't act and use that in your own mind, then it just becomes blind faith, right? And then it just becomes, then when Kalden is not here anymore, then like, your kind of like wish for working on yourself or any of this goes away. That is not the type of faith that we want to develop in Buddhism. We want to develop the type of faith that is actually experiential and is going to bring us through our own experiences, like again and again and again. And that will give us that strong energy, that strong devotion, that is strong wish to actually go through the hardships of changing our behaviors, changing our way of thinking, changing the beliefs that we have, that eating burrito every day or pad thai, it will make me happy, right? So it's going to have to be very strong, because the burrito and the pad thai is very delicious. So they are very kind of like sneaky. They really kind of like make us kind of like, believe in that. So then we really need to start investigating and say, wait a minute. Actually, does it come? Because the problem is that what we have is that we don't investigate the real aspect that we need to investigate, which is our own experiences. No. Today I decided that we're going to talk about something very nice, and I'm going to make your minds completely crazy. So that's what the idea what we're going to do today. So what we need to start actually doubting in the Buddhist path is our own perceptions, is the way we perceive things. Why is that? Well, what do you mean by that? Well, in Buddhism, we say that things, the way we experience things through our mind, it comes based, or it comes through the lenses of our perception, right? Do you understand that? What do you understand what that means? The new person is following. Where's the new person? Raise your hand and say yes. Okay. You are the thermometer, as I always say. We need someone that it's a new person to see if I'm making sense, because I'm a mess. So you need to make sense, So that is important, that we start to actually understanding what is the real type of doubt that in Buddhism we want to achieve. And what we want to start developing is the doubt towards the perceptions that we have. What does it mean? Well, it means that from the point of view of Buddhism, the way things are and the way things appear to us, there is a mismatch in it. What does it mean? Wait a minute. What does it mean by the way things appears to me? Well, let's start with the most important example. The pad thai, the green curry, and the burrito, right? The way when we go, we're gonna finish, today at 12:30, and we're gonna be all hungry and be like, I really need to eat something. I'm so hungry. And then we're gonna go to some place to eat. Maybe go home, maybe go somewhere. And we have the food in front of us. And the way we are looking at that food, literally looking at it, and the way the food is appearing to ourselves is that it's delicious, right? So then we are going to enjoy that food because we believe that is delicious, the food. However, we have someone that didn't come to here, that they didn't do anything, they just woke up, they just ate, and then they're gonna come to the food and they're gonna say, I'm not hungry, this food doesn't look nice, I don't want it. And you're gonna be like, what are you talking about? This food is delicious, right? So what's happening here? What is the problem that is happening here? Is it in the food, the deliciousness? Or it is our perception of the food that is actually creating our experience? Right? Do you understand? Do you guys agree? Did I lost you already? Or is okay?
No, we're good. We're good.
So what happens in that moment when someone says, no, I don't like this food is bad, this food is that, either we get annoyed with that person, right? We say, this person always complaining, It's like Brian and Sandra, It's like Brian say, Sandra is always complaining about the food, because it's not Brazilian food. So she's always complaining like this, So then you kind of like you say, what about that? But, and then you start, no, but like the food is delicious. I don't care. Okay, so you don't eat, I will eat everything. And you start, right? Because your mind completely believed that food has the quality, has the characteristic, has another word for quality, characteristic, the component, the ingredient of deliciousness in it, right? In no moment did I doubt or did I investigate it if actually that food is coming and appearing to my mind. It's actually the appearance of it. Because I'm hungry, because I was bored listening to Kalden, and now I just want to eat, and now I have it what I want, right? Because I tasted that food before, and I believed that it was good. Therefore, I brought with me that idea, so every time I see that food, it kind of like appears as actually being delicious. I don't think like this. We don't think like this. We believe that it is coming from, the side of the food. So because we don't doubt that, every time that we actually encounter with things, we believe that those objects, those people, that song, that this, that whatever it is, that movie that we are watching, that everything is giving us that pleasurable experience. And therefore, we need to continue having that. Therefore, we need to continue chasing it. Therefore, we need to continue, kind of like looking for it again and again and again and again and again. So this is the reason why we are constantly looking for these external objects, these external experiences, these external kind of like interactions with those objects to fulfill our satisfaction, to fulfill our feeling of being satisfied. Because we don't doubt our own minds and our own perceptions. And therefore, what happens is that I ate the burrito, I eat the pad thai and the curry, and maybe the burrito has a different ingredient, maybe the pad thai is not spicy enough, or the green curry is too spicy. Then when that happens, I suffer. Because I believed that the object had the power, had the possibility of giving me that pleasurable experience. Nothing to do with my mind. Nothing to do in the way I'm perceiving that experience. Does it make any sense what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yes? Yes? Do you guys have any questions up until now? Or are you okay? Or any comments or considerations? No? Bob? No, no question? Okay. So that is important then that we start to really check the way we look into these external experiences to really come up with a conclusion, right? That is actually our perception that is limiting our experience, right? With good or bad, with delicious or not deliciousness, that is coming from us and not from the side of the object. That is maybe easy to understand when we are kind of like talking about external objects, right? Even though it's difficult sometimes when someone says to us, I don't like chocolate. And then we become very angry because that person is completely nuts. How can nobody not like chocolate, right? But then we need to start doubting and say, wait a minute. It's their perception that is believing that actually chocolate is not good, right? So they're not bad people. They just have a bad perception, about chocolate. And we like chocolate because we have that perception. It's just that, right? So that is what we need to start investigating and doubting and checking to really start seeing and being free from those wrong mental states, those wrong views that don't allow us to actually be happy. And then, okay, external things might be easier and all of that, but let's talk about the way we see ourselves, right? The perception we have about ourselves. Because right now, this is one of the strongest and most kind of like difficult relationships we have in our lives. It's not maybe the relationship with the partner, the relationship with the boss, relationship with a family, relationship is maybe the relationship with ourselves, the way we relate to ourselves. And what happens in that case is that also we are not in tune or in harmony with the way we are and the way we appear to ourselves. Right? What does it mean? Well, it's very easy. You just go around, and ask people in your life, like friends, family, strangers, like people at work, how they see you. Right? And you're going to be learning incredible things that you didn't think because you believe that you are kind, amazing, soft spoken, and relaxed, and helpful, and loyal, and all of that, right? Because normally that's what we think about ourselves, that we are always good things, isn't it? We don't think and check that people will have very different experiences when they are experiencing us, when they are in relationship with us, right? So therefore, we ask ourselves, who am I? Am I the way people perceive me? Am I the way I perceive myself? So, what is it? Who am I? Am I these perceptions? Or these perceptions are just habits that I'm having on a confused mental state, on ways that, because I'm not doubting it, I'm just actually habituating myself to follow it. So therefore, if you think about it, it's like, whoa, maybe actually I'm not this low person, this person that I need, especially when we are sad and down, when we are depressed. No, we start to see ourselves, we come with this strong whip, huge whip, and we start beating ourselves and say, I am like this, I'm like, I'm not good enough, I'm not, beautiful enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not like, worthy, I'm sinful, negative, wrong, right? That's normally how we identify ourselves. And then because we don't want to feel this inner kind of like dissatisfaction, these kind of like painful feelings, what do? We compensate with the extreme of them. We go to, no, I am amazing. I'm like Superman, Superwoman. I'm kind of like, very good, very like this and that. We go to pride, arrogance. Where's Jason? Jason is there? We go to pride and we go to all of these kind of like very strong ideas to compensate. Or we start to kind of like do things and act in certain ways so we don't have to actually go into those, beliefs. We don't fall into those beliefs. So we are limiting ourselves. We are just kind of like creating those limiting, as Lama Yeshe used to say, we start to suffocate ourselves, right? So this suffocation comes from our own limited, neurotic kind of like, perception of ourselves. So actually, nobody's doing that for us. Nobody's limiting ourselves. Nobody's actually suffocating us. We are. We are the responsible of our own confusion, right? And the same way that we are responsible for our own confusions, we are also responsible for our own happiness. That's the Buddhist point of view, That's the Buddhist assumption, that we are responsible for working with our minds towards happiness, towards liberating ourselves from these limiting kind of like perceptions. And then we start to understand, because we understand that the perceptions is limiting ourselves, then it's not about the pad thai, it's not about the burrito. I know, very disappointing, but yeah, they cannot give us, that lasting happiness that we want. So this is the basis on what kind of like Buddhism is going to say it is our spiritual path. That is like the reason why we can develop, our own minds if we start understanding the way that our minds work, the way that our consciousness work. But more than that, actually, Buddhism is going to go even a little bit more subtle than that, which is an idea, a concept that really, really helped me, when I used to be depressed, when I used to have low days, and when I still have sometimes, like low days, low energy and all of that, which is, if we really start to investigate and look into our minds, what actually brings us these kind of like unpleasant feelings is when we suffer, right? When we have kind of like unpleasant experiences, like for example, I want burrito and I arrive at the restaurant and there's no burrito, right? So I have what? Attachment to burrito. I believe that the burrito will give me happiness, and then no burrito, so then I suffer. I become angry. I shout at the person, say, how come you don't have burritos, right? I become like this. So what happens in that moment, my mind is disturbed. So I'm like kind of like disturbed because I wanted the burrito and I believed the burrito was going to make me happy, I believed that that person was going to make me happy, and then they leave me. They kind of like don't love me. They say they don't love me anymore. Or I believe that having that kind of like job made me, important or anything like that. And then I lose my job, so I suffer. All of those things, right? So what happens is that kind of like we start to understand that those mental states, they kind of like come and go in our minds, right? There is burrito, I'm happy. There's no burrito, I suffer, right? Like this, we go like this. Roller coaster, as I like to say, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And sometimes it looks like it's going good, and then boom, something happens. And then, that's something, very good, something very bad. It goes like this. So that helps us understand that our minds, our consciousness, they don't have those negative mental states all the time. We are not attached to burrito all the time, right? We hope, maybe, Hernani say, maybe Hernani is attached to burrito all the time, So maybe we are kind of like attached to burrito all the time, but sometimes we kind of like have a little bit of no attachment to burrito. So that proves that our minds don't have those emotions as a basic aspect of its nature. It's not kind of like, let's say, a decisive factor for us to live, as many people say, right? Oh, but ups and downs is part of life. Yes, it's part of life now, but it doesn't have to. because we do live without them every once in a while, right? So now what we want is to live without them all the time. How about that? That is the idea. To live without these negative mental states that kind of like, so that proves to us that those kind of like mental states that are kind of like obscuring our experiences and like, making ourselves like this, that we have sometimes, they are like what we say, like the clouds in the sky. They are there, but they are not part of, the sky, and especially they are not like the sun, right? Because the sun, it's clear and is always there and shining, even if the clouds are up, are there in the sky. I always say these concepts when you go to have a flight, and then it's really raining and all of that, and then you go up this, and then you come over there, and then you see the sky being blue and spacious, and the sun shining. So we say in Buddhism that is like our own essence. We can be free. Our essence is free from all of these disturbing emotions. So that is very important for us, because when we are down, when we are kind of like really attached to kind of like something, or really sad about something, if we start to remember that, if we start to remember our pure essence, we start to remember our own goodness, right? And we don't get kind of like engaged or kind of like limited by these ego projections of ourselves. So this is a way, it's one of the ways that we can help ourselves to undo or kind of like break out of these limiting projections, right? When we think about that, we are like low and down and this and that, blah, blah. So if we remember, if we connect with that pure essence of ourselves, that opens our hearts, that kind of like opens our awareness, our mind, and then that limiting mental states, or the limiting kind of like projection that is saying that, oh, I'm not good enough, oh, I should have done this, I shouldn't have done that, I should be like this, I shouldn't be like that, starts to be a bit silenced, It's like, okay, yeah, okay, but I'm actually more connecting with that pure essence of myself. So I have more space. So therefore, the way I'm going to engage with things, the way I'm going to kind of like live my life from that connection with that pure essence that we have, is going to make my life much better. Instead of living my life from that limiting projection of myself. Does it make sense what I'm talking about? You guys are very quiet. I'm a little bit afraid.
That's just your projection. That's just your perception.
That is just my projection.
It's your perception.
It's just the projection of the screen. It's just the projection of the screen that is making you actually kind of like quiet.
I have a question, Kalden.
We have a
Yes.
question too.
So how do we connect with the pure essence of ourselves? That
Good.
meditation, being in nature, being
Yes.
quiet, yeah, how do we get there?
I always like Susan's questions. She always like make very good questions. That's very good. So I think that we need to there's levels, as kind of like we say in Buddhism, we say in Buddhism that our minds, it has kind of like that pure essence of ourselves is the most subtle experience that we can have. Okay. And then we have kind of like more gross experiences. And if those gross experiences, like for example, our mental states are too agitated, we are too attached, or we're too angry with someone, it's very hard to actually go and connect with that pure essence and more open state of mind, right? So what is always important, or if our bodies are too stressed or too kind of like tight or whatever, it's also difficult. So it's always important to start with kind of like these more gross levels. So for example, the body, if our bodies are too kind of like stressed and tense, it's always good to do things to relax. And as you said, like go for a walk in nature, or kind of like do some breathing, kind of like exercise, or just kind of like really being in tune with our bodies, like what we should do, say, do a body scan, so we can start relaxing that part, okay? But also what we have is also the mind, which is if the mind is too attached, if the mind is too worried, it's too kind of like this, it's very hard. So for that, we need to develop what we call the 3 types of wisdom that will help us, with that mental states, okay? So these are not external only things, but especially inner things, because it's an inner experience, right? Like the attachment, the angry, or the loop, that loop that we get sometimes about something or a certain situation. So that we need to kind of like first learn about that. We need to understand that mental state. We need to see and say, oh yes, I am. I can see that, as I say, the algorithm, what the algorithm is saying to us and keeping us like, in the loop or thinking about something. So we need to start looking into this, but with knowledge. So that is why it's important to like learn and study about the mind, and that's why Buddhism in this case is so special, because the main emphasis is about the mechanics, as I like to say, the science and the mechanics of the mind. So then once we start to understand that the what is kind of like creating that disturbance in our mind, then we can start using antidotes to decrease it, right? So then we can do a positive mental state, or we can kind of like meditate on the openness of the mind, on the essence of the mind. So that will start kind of like helping us, right? And then the meditations it's one of the most important tools right now for us to be able to really connect with that essence. Because right now, if we don't actually calm the mind and the body, it's going to be very difficult for us to touch that kind of like essence, right? So we say that, yes, that we need to kind of like start with the growth. So that's why sometimes people think, oh, Buddhism don't think about the body, or don't think about that. It's not really true. We do, but we don't put the emphasis on that. That's not the goal, to have a kind of like just the body being healthy and good. Yes, it's important for us to have a good, relaxed and healthy body, but the mental state is the most important. So so then with kind of like certain techniques of meditation, we start to connect with it. And then what it becomes even better, Susan, is that the more we habituate with these meditations, because meditation called familiarization, then we bring that to our daily lives. So everything that we do, if we have that knowledge, if we have that experience from the meditation, from the learning, from the meditation, we start to see everything that we are doing with like coming or arising from that pure nature of ourselves, right? So everything that we do, we start to actually check and see that it's coming because we have that purity. Because we have that purity, everything can arise, right? Everything can come, even anger, even kind of like happiness, even love, even compassion, because we have that purity, because it's like the sky. But what we need to start is discerning what type of experiences we want to actually allow, or we want to nourish, or we want to plant in that field, in that kind of like openness. So is that. So then everything that we do becomes a training for choosing, discerning, and kind of like enhancing that experience, if that makes any sense. Does it help?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Mhm.
Okay. So that's a very good question. Any other questions or someone or commentaries or?
I do. It's the other Suzanne,
Oh,
to make it easy. And I was just curious, you were talking about attachments,
Yes.
and do you think of attachments and expectations as similar or different things?
Different things. It's kind of like expectation is not necessarily out of attachment. We can have expectations based on understanding circumstances. For example, I can have an expectation to go to Florida because I got the ticket and I have the visa. So that's a okay, let's say, expectation. So it's just an expectation of having something that might happen in the future without any type of emotion, as I say, no Brazilian drama in it, it's just like an expectation, because there's causes and conditions coming together, which means, buying the ticket, being invited to go there. So, you know, so then if the flight is there, if I walk inside of the flight, then there's a match and then it happens, right? But then attachment is not like this. Attachment is a distorted mindset. Attachment creates and projects, right, qualities and exaggerates those qualities of an object, of a person, of a situation, of an idea, of an opinion, and not only makes it that kind of like believe that these kind of like these qualities exist, no, on the object, exist in that person, exist in this way, but they are the causes of our happiness. So therefore, I have an expectation that having or encountering or being close or you know, or eating or you know, being with that person will bring me that happiness. And that is an expectation that is completely out of wrong because of what we just described today. Because it doesn't bring us happiness. It brings a very short temporary pleasure, and that's it. So pleasure and happiness very different in Buddhism. Does it help, Susanna?
Yes. It does.
Yes? So
Yes.
then the mental state of attachment is what we call a disturbing emotion, because it disturbs our minds. But if I'm having an expectation that there's no disturbance, then it's not an attachment. But if there is an expectation, believing that I need to have this, otherwise I won't be happy, then it's a wrong mind. It's a kind of like a disturbing emotion, because this will bring us suffering. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, very good question. Anyone else? Other question? Yes.
Hi, it's Tal. How are you?
Hi, Tao. Good to see you there.
So just to follow up on Suzanne's point, I find for me that it's been very helpful to look at my expectations. It's like a little window for me into where my attachments are, because if there's a delay in the flight, or if the information that somebody gave you for something to happen was wrong information, all these things that happen every day, right? Then the mind is disturbed.
Yes.
And so I find it, I understand you're talking about the difference, but for me anyway, what I'm finding is that a lot of this expectation making in the mind is, there's a lot of attachment in there that I discovered later.
Yeah.
Yes, I completely agree with you. Yes, I gave the difference, but to be honest, most of the time, 99.99%, we are doing attachment expectation, right? Because that is, as you were saying, is like the most kind of like normality for ourselves. As I said in the beginning, is that we are constantly, remember I said about the feed, the Instagram feed, you know, it's there. It's like we are constantly chasing those pleasures in those kind of like experiences, in those kind of like situations. So if we are having that expectation right now, most possibly, you know, so that's I cannot say because I don't know your minds. Maybe you guys are Buddhas, you're already kind of like relaxed, everything. So, but you know, maybe like, you know, most possibly is coming through that wrong belief that if I have it or if I do it, I'm gonna be happy and I need that to happen then. Because that is what normally is our motor, you know, our driving force, right? Our driving force for doing something most of the times is that expectation to have that pleasurable experience, because we believe it's gonna happen, but we don't see it as pleasure, we just see it as absolutely happiness, and therefore that's why we engage on it, right? Because if actually we would have the understanding of our minds that is in the mind, out, free from those wrong perceptions, free from that kind of like way of believing that these things will give us happiness, we wouldn't chase most of these things, to be honest, right? We wouldn't be chasing some of these things that we really believe it will bring us happiness. We wouldn't engage in some of those, I'm gonna insult everybody now, stupid things we do, you know? So that is why. So I completely agree. Very good point, Tal. Is very good. Very good.
Thank you.
Because-
And I find that the disturbance lasts less time, you know, with the teachings, the disturbance in the mind doesn't last so long. And then you're able just to switch, you just adapt to what the
Yes.
circumstances are, you know?
Yes, yes. This is exactly that. You know what is the most beautiful thing, you know, like what you are describing in some ways is that you start to develop a good and healthy and a balanced and kind of like sense of you or like confidence in yourself, right? You start to really develop because you see that yes, things start to decrease. So you start to say, oh, I am actually able to find or to look towards directions and ways to really accomplish my wish to be happy and not suffer. It means that it's going to go like this. It means that it's like once you get it, it's just like, and sometimes, you know, you immediately catch yourself, as you say, it's like, and then you just kind of like cut immediately that expectation. So there's no suffering. And that is great, but it doesn't mean that it's going to happen all the time right now, right? It's a process. Like, but when you do it, then you're like, actually benefit me so much. So that is the mental state that we need to start kind of like say, wow, this is good. So I'm going to continue focusing and kind of like developing that more and more and more and more. So that is the idea, right? So that is very good, Tal, very good. Very, very good. That,
Phrase or something you can say to catch yourself, like, oh, just let it go. You know, like, oh, someone just crashed into my car. Okay, well, let it go. Or like, is there like a phrase that's used to sort of bring yourself down quickly?
I think that I think that is not like a fix like instant fix, right? Because it's a habituation, right? Because if the mind is habituated to immediately react, you know, like a kind of like a mantra, yes, Johnny said, like a mantra, yes. If you do kind of like chant some like a mantra in Buddhism means kind of like protection to the mind, right? So that is what it actually means, mantra. So that is why we chant mantras, you know, and we can be chanting mantras not like out loud. We can just be chanting mantras, you know, like these. And that is kind of like helping you to not be going out to your kind of like normal, like, you know, instant habits and patterns, right? So you need to kind of like familiarize yourselves with different mental states that will help you to kind of like the moment that that happens, that you will start, as I like to say, checking that experience that maybe came up, the habitual pattern, and start checking if that is actually the best way to think. So for example, someone just like, you know, like a yeah, bumped into your car or something like that, crashed into your car, you know, and then you can say, oh, you know, immediately you get angry. It's like, oh my God, and this, blah, 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 blah. And then you start, wait a minute, you know, you can start catching yourself and say, well, if I go like this, it's not going to help. Look at me. I'm already like this. I'm going to kind of like do something. And it's going to be my health, my body, like just start to really pay attention. And then we start to say, okay, so good that nothing worse happened, you know, and there is a solution for that. So let's go and look for the solution and take out the drama, the Brazilian drama, and just try to look for the solution, right? And then we can even think about, oh, let's see if this person is not like you know, hurt. Maybe they were kind of like going somewhere. Maybe something has happened to them. So, you know, let's just kind of like make sure. So you start to you counteract that habitual tendency, which is normally coming and doing like being kind of like sharp and creating disturbance, and you start to make it a little bit more kind of like calm and peaceful, right? So yes, if you want kind of like a mantra, is just thinking, oh, like it could have been worse, right? That happens. That really helps. Sometimes you say, oh, it could have been worse. So that's okay. You know, now we can think about it. Now we're gonna make it happen, right? So is that a constant training of the mind, right? So when difficulties come, instead of seeing them as a problem, as an issue, we actually engage with them. We say, wow, this is helping me to see how my habitual patterns are, how my tendencies are, how my perceptions are, so I can stop undoing them. So I can start kind of like counteracting them, you know, with these thinkings, with this way of thinking and looking. You know, we talked a lot about, like, for example, attachment, how we can actually look into different ways, right? So that is kind of like helpful in that way. Does it help, Suzanne? Yes. So that is kind of like, there's not an instant fix, but as Tal said, is like it's a constant. You just go developing that awareness, developing that kind of like knowledge, develop that inner knowledge, that inner wisdom, as we say. And then when situations come, you have that. You know, you have the tools, you have the toolkit, as I like to say, the Buddhist toolkit, and you take out the best tool for that moment, you know? And then you go take it, and then, oh, this moment actually is compassion. That moment is actually thinking about the essence. That moment is actually relaxing my body and my mind. That moment is actually, you know, using an antidote and say, you know, anger is like an attachment, or, you know, you go like using these different mental states, yeah, to investigate, to analyze. That's why doubt, I said, is so important, because if you don't doubt the anger when it's arising, then you just slide, as I like to say, immediately into it, right? So then there's no need for doing anything. But with the moment you doubt if that is really the mental state that you want to have it at that moment, then you start to use those methods, yeah, those wisdom, that kind of like different things. Does it make sense? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Any other question or commentaries before you guys start discussing about doubt? Sorry.
Hi, my name's Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi. Mantra that I recently discovered has been very helpful is Om Tare Tutare Soha. Tore
Yes.
Soha. So it's
Yes.
overcoming fear, it's checking yourself whenever something arises, and also knowing to let it go, to let it be.
Mm.
Kind of
I think that mantras are very powerful mental states, you know, as I said, because they are protection to the mind, right? They are kind of like and if you think about it, a mantra is created by an enlightened being. An enlightened being is someone that has no suffering, that has all the tools perfected, exactly what we want, what we just described it, you know, what I was describing to Suzanne now. It's like that idea, you know, and they already done it, they already master it. So they create a mantra as a ways, as a method to help ourselves. So in the creation of the mantra in itself, even though it is in kind of like Sanskrit or Tibetan, the language, we might not understand, but of course there is a meaning. And once we understand the meaning, it becomes even stronger. But the words in itself, they were created with that intention. So these already makes them powerful, right? Which is very different than the way we normally create words just to describe things. But that is the idea. It's like, that is the idea. So then the mantras, they have that kind of like strong possibility, right? Of kind of like helping us if we want. So if we put intention to use that mantra to help the mind to calm down, to help the mind to kind of like, you know, relax, so we can use that relaxation and that calm mind to do something that will benefit us, then it's great. Okay? However, not everything is because it was done by the Buddhas, because there was the good intention. We use them in a wise way. So we just need to be careful to not be just like, oh yes, and kind of like being actually getting angry. And it's like, no, I'm just letting go. No, everything's okay. And we are, as I like to say, spiritually bypassing our emotions, right? We are actually not trying to connect with the negative or the difficult emotion because we don't want to deal with that. Buddhism says the opposite. You know, the Dalai Lama says something that's very important. The manifested emotion is what we're going to use, you know, in order to work on our minds. So we need, it's almost saying, in order to let it go, you first need to grab what is there. Otherwise, how can you let it go? Right? So we need to. So it doesn't mean grabbing or kind of like engaging with the emotion doesn't mean allowing it or engaging with it. You know, it's kind of like screaming or shouting or punching someone. Not like that. It doesn't mean that. But it means allowing it to arise, engaging with it with that intention of transforming it. Because otherwise we are negating it. We are suppressing it. And that is not the idea. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Yes. It's more than recognize. Hernan said, recognize is more than just recognizing the emotion. It's actually allowing it to be. So there's a very special teacher called Jitsuma Tenzin Palmo. I think I already talked about her. She's a nun. She's probably 80, 81 right now. She's English. She was one of the first nuns, and she stayed 12 years in retreat in a cave in the Himalayas. So can you imagine? Very special. She's very, very, very special. Her mind is very clear, and she has these beautiful eyes, blue eyes, and the way she talks is very special. And she was talking about that, you know? It's kind of like it's about really, really undoing or not allowing our constant habits of the way we actually run away or suppress, or you know, of kind of like don't want to engage with these negative emotions, or not allowing them to just explode. So it's first that point, which is like, just allow it, recognize that there is anger and allow it to come. And then once you can allow it, as she likes to say, and I also like to say, is this, like, we look it into the eye of the emotion. Then we have the emotion, no? Then we can have the emotion to then start saying, oh, actually, this mental state, it's creating suffering for me. It's not really helping me. Is really kind of like, you know, because I believe that this is going to bring me happiness, and I believe that this is going to allow me to not be free from suffering. But actually, I'm agitated when I do that. I actually speak negatively about others or to others, or I do things. That is not good. So I come with that to that experience. It's my experience. But I have to have the emotion there. So it's not about suppressing it. It's not about that. So then we can really use, you know, kind of like mantra for that. Does it make sense, Jennifer?
Yes, it makes sense.
Yes. Very, very good, because that I feel sometimes it is the most difficult. And I was talking about that because I also, you know, like, well, of course, me being a man, but I think that men especially, I already said that in another class, we do have a difficulty with dealing with the emotion, right? We even allowing the emotion to come up, you know? We already want to suppress it, to not feel it, to not do it. We already create some sort of distraction or whatever. So we just need to be careful with that, you know? If we have a distraction, you know, to not feel my emotions and to do things, to be useful, to be we need to check. So we don't use the mantra as another distraction. Yes, that is the point that I'm trying to kind of like create. But the mantra in itself, very powerful if we use, you know? It's very powerful if you want to. And sometimes, to be honest, distracting the mind, if the emotion is too strong, it's okay. So if we want to distract the mind, instead of distracting the mind, you know, because we're too angry and we can't control ourselves, instead of distracting ourselves with like a scrolling, like a, you know, brain rotting, you know, like this, you just kind of like, then you chant mantras, much better. Then good. Then in this case, good. Yes? Okay. So now up to you guys to discuss about doubt. About especially, like, you know, these different types of doubt that we talk about, you know, the doubt towards like negative, and the doubt towards kind of like maybe yes, and the doubt towards oh yeah, okay, I can see that. How do you kind of like do that? How do you feel? How do you doubt things? What is your process, or how do you kind of like, or what helps you to go towards a doubt that can help you, you know? It's like some people say, I need to understand why, or I need to understand this, so just try to talk a little bit about, to check how you use doubt, you know, and try to see how doubt can be beneficial. Yes? Does it make sense? Is it clear? So you guys come together, maybe groups of 3 or 4 over there at the center, and then you discuss that, okay? So that is very important. And before we finish, so I just wanted us to dedicate what we did. So dedication in Buddhism means that we use everything that the knowledge, the kind of like experience, the insight that we had, and we really use that so we can kind of like continue what I said to Suzanne, you know, to the first Susanna, not the second, the first one, you know, that we said like kind of like we use to bring that awareness, to bring that not only here and say, okay, now we go out of the Buddhist center, all of this gone, and I just go straight to my habitual patterns, right? And as Tal said as well, that we kind of like continue nourishing it again and again and again in our daily lives, So it becomes better. It becomes like faster our ways to control our minds and feel the benefit of it, right? So we dedicate for that. We dedicate that we don't just forget what we did it here and then we don't allow it just for ourselves, but we try to use it in all our daily lives, all our activities, and with everyone that we encounter in our lives. Okay? We dedicate for that. And of course, we would not be able to be here if we would not be learning about these things, you know, this incredible knowledge that has been going on for 2,600 years. So we dedicate for these incredible teachers that have preserved these teachings, you know, and not only preserved as a oral blah, 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 like me, like a parrot, but actually embody those teachings, right? And making us believe it is possible. Very important, that as well. And we dedicate for Thubten Kalden, that special place that we have in Deerfield. So special that we can have that place, you know, that space where we can come together, we can talk and benefit and learn and kind of like learn about these new tools and share these. So special. So we dedicate for it to continue having all the necessary conditions so this can continue to be not only for us, but for the future generations to come to benefit from it. Okay? So I hope it was in any way beneficial, these blah, blah, blah. And I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Don't forget to discuss very much. Online people as well. Many people already ran away. But you know, but you guys discuss because discussion is very important. And I see you tomorrow, 7:30 a.m. for our meditation. Don't forget. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I want
You're
to
kind of
suggest
this
just
day
stuff
for
from
discussion.